Hello all, welcome to this session. In this session, I am going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, what are primitive data types in Java? Let me answer. So what are primitive data types in Java? Primitive data types in Java. What are? So let me explain in detail now. Okay. Primitive data types are first of all non-object oriented. Okay. So primitive data types are, first thing about primitive data types are, they are non-object oriented data types. Okay, they are not related to any object oriented concepts in Java programming. Okay, so Java developers thought of keeping these primitive data types simple and basic level. Okay, they are used like anything. Okay, primitive data types are used like anything. So they wanted to make these primitive data types non-object oriented so that they doesn't consume a lot of memory, space, and performance. Okay, fine. So that's why primitive data types are non-object oriented and basic element level data types we have in Java. Okay, so that's the first thing. They are basic. Primitive data types are non-object oriented and basic data types we have in Java, using which we can declare variables. If you want to declare some variables, we have to use primitive data types case. Okay. So, and you have to understand about primitive data types as they are basic data types using which we can declare the variables according to the declared data type of that particular variable. We can store the compatible data into that variable. Okay. And they are non-object oriented also. Okay. At the same time, they are non-object oriented. So they are very basic and elementary level and non-object oriented data types are called as primitive data types in Java. Fine. That's the first line. Oh, so what are the different primitive data types we have in Java? Okay. So now we understood what are primitive data types. Using these primitive data types, we are going to declare the variables, and these data types, which are called as primitive data types, which can be used for declaring the variables, are non-object oriented and very basic level. Okay, elementary level. So those are called as primitive data types. So what are the different primitive data types we have in Java? Byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, boolean. Okay, byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, boolean are the different primitive data types we have in Java. Okay, these are the 8 primitive data types. Okay, these are the only 8. Java only has 8 primitive data types in Java, starting from byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, boolean. So coming to this first 4, byte, short, int, long, they can store integer values. Okay, so byte will store up to 1 byte. Okay, the size of this byte is the minimum one for storing the integer values, whereas short is the double size of byte. It can store a bigger number, integer number, whereas int can store double the size of short. Byte is 1 byte of size, whereas short is 2 bytes, whereas int is 4 bytes of size. Every byte is called 8 bits, right? So like that. Okay, I don't want to go in details in this as an answer for this question. Here I just need to answer what are primitive data types. I'm just explaining. Okay, all these 4 data types which fall into the primitive data types category can store integer values into them, but of different size. Okay, this one can store 1 byte of size, 8 bits. Okay, short is 2 bytes, that is 16 bits. Okay, this is 4 bytes. Okay, 32 bits. Long is of like 8 bytes, that is 64 bits. Again, we have float, which can store decimal values. Okay, here byte, short, int, long cannot store decimal values. You declare a particular variable with this data type, that particular variable cannot store decimal values. But if you declare that particular variable with either float or double, that particular variable can store decimal values. Okay, double is double the size of float, that you can understand for now. Char, a variable declared with char data type, primitive data type, can store single letter, character, or symbol, or whatever it is, surrounded by single quotes. Okay, single letter thing. Okay, single character it can store. Then boolean can store only 2 values, either true or false. Okay, variable declared with boolean can store either true or false. So these are the 8 primitive data types we have in Java. All these 8 primitive data types are non-object oriented in nature, and they are a very basic data types. Okay, basic data types are elementary level data types. Okay, that we have in Java programming, and the basic things will start with data types, and this will go into the complex level Okay, using this basic, we can create complex structures, and they are more often used. That's why Java guys kept them as non-object oriented nature. If they have made them object oriented, the programs will consume more memory and space and all those stuff. Okay, performance will degrade and all those stuff. Okay, so Java guys still feel that by keeping them non-object oriented, the memory and space and performance of the programs will improve. That's why they're called as primitive data types, which are non-object oriented and basic level data types we have in Java. Okay, fine. And these are the different primitive data types we have in Java. With practical demonstration, I'm going to show you an example of each and every primitive data type we have here. For that, I'll just create a new class. I'll just name this class as class C with the main method. And inside the main method, I'm going to declare some variables. Okay. So int A is equal to 9. Int B is equal to some 121. Int C is equal to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Int D is equal to. So here I'm using everywhere int, right? Here I'll use byte. It can store integer value. Here I'm using short. It can store bigger size number. Okay, I don't want to explain all the detailed things. Okay, short int. Here I can say long 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, something. Okay, if I give some bigger number, I'm getting an error. I can put L here. Okay, long literal it can store, or integer values also it can store. Okay, fine. Integer to long literals it can store because it has bigger size of all these things. And coming to the float E is equal to 12.34. If I put a semicolon, I'll get an error because the values that need to be stored into the variable of the float data type need to be ending with F, capital F or lowercase f. Here, the value that you are storing should be an integer literal like this, or if it is a bigger size, you have to append L here so that it can store long literals also into this variable. Okay, integer literals are like this. Okay, long literals are like this, and floating point values and double F here 123.456. It can store. Here D is optional, guys. Whether you want to put lowercase d or capital D or without D, it's okay. Okay, it can store. But float compulsory F should be there. Lowercase or capital F should be there. Okay. Then we have char. E is equal to some S, or in place of this S, you can provide a symbol or number or whatever. It doesn't matter. It should be surrounded by single quotes and only one item should be there. Boolean, either true, or if not true, in place of true, there should be false. Okay. So these are the different primitive data types we have in Java: byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, boolean. For each and every primitive data type, I have given example how we can use these different primitive data types for declaring the variables, and accordingly, how can we assign the compatible data into that particular variables declared with the different primitive data types. So with practical demonstration, I have answered this question for you. So what are primitive data types in Java? Primitive data types are non-object oriented and basic level and elementary level data types in Java, using which we can declare variables, and by declaring the variables, we can assign compatible data into that particular variables. Okay. In Java, it's mandatory to declare the variables with the primitive data types. Otherwise, it will not allow. If you try to directly say A is equal to 5, it won't be possible. Okay. In Java, for example, here I'll give a different thing. Different variable. You see, I have not declared the variable. I cannot be resolved a variable. The moment I declare the variable, only the compiler error or errors will go. Okay. It's mandatory to declare the variables with primitive data types in Java. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye bye.